Morning, Commissioner Wilson.
I am here.
Thank you. Morning, Vanessa.
Good morning.
Thank you, Vanessa. Morning, Ellen.
Good morning, Janelle.
Thank you. Morning, Commissioner Rommel. Good morning, Commissioner Rommel.
Good morning. Sure. Thanks for sending me the link again. I lost track of it.
Oh, no problem. That was Lynn this morning, but no problem. Yeah.
Okay, whoever, thank you.
Yep. Good morning, Commissioner Freeze.
Good morning.
Thank you. I see Commissioner Eskridge is with us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Commissioner Eskridge. Can I have you try that again? Your volume was way low. Commissioner Eskridge, can you hear us?
Yeah, I just switched my headphones. Can you hear me better now, Janelle?
Yep, we hear you perfect now. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, good morning, everybody. It's 8 a.m. I'll call the meeting to order of the Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District on this leap day, 29th of February. Okay, Janelle, would you like to do the roll call quorum, please?
Of course. Commissioner Bookland.
Here, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Clark.
Aye.
Commissioner Eskridge.
Here.
Commissioner Freeze.
Here.
Commissioner Havel.
Here.
Commissioner Meyer.
Here.
Commissioner Rummel.
Present.
Commissioner Wilson.
Here. Wow.
Commissioner Murphy is excused today.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. We'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. Welcome to all of our guests. Janelle, would you like to go through the virtual meeting guidance, please?
Of course. Good morning, commissioners, members of the public, and staff. To help us have a smooth meeting, I'm going to review just a few rules for all to please follow. Number 1, please ensure your mic is muted unless you are speaking. Number 2, please state your name before speaking. Number 3, for those who are speaking, please have your cameras on if possible. If you're experiencing technological challenges, please feel free to turn them off. And number 4, as a reminder, the public chat has been disabled, but you can still send messages to the host, and this meeting is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube. With that, let's have a great meeting, everyone, and welcome.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. Michael, you have any announcements?
I do not have any announcements today, President Hubble.
Okay, then why don't you move into the proclamation recognizing Employee Appreciation Day?
It would be great. I'd love to. We're we have a proclamation honoring district staff on Employee Appreciation Day, which is Friday, but we're having an Employee Appreciation Week, so we're stepping it up a notch. And I'll read the proclamation, then I'll have a few remarks. Whereas Employee Appreciation Day is celebrated annually with this year's recognition on Friday, March 1st. The individuals who have chosen to pursue a career in the clean water industry with MMSD play a vital role in ensuring the health and safety of our communities. Their tireless efforts are often unseen and underappreciated, despite their critical contribution to clean water, sanitation, public health, and environmental protection. The district requires staff across a variety of careers, including science, technology, engineering and math careers, operations, maintenance, business and professional services, and more. Their skill and dedication are essential to maintaining the infrastructure that supports our homes, businesses, and industries. Their expertise helps safeguard our environment from harmful pollutants and contributes to the sustainability of our water resources. Their knowledge and contributions ensure the district upholds its mission, and it is fitting and proper that we recognize and appreciate the hard work and dedication of our district employees. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the MMSD Commission, call upon all citizens to join us in recognizing and thanking district employees who work tirelessly to protect our public health and environment, and offer our sincere gratitude to the staff of the district on behalf of our communities we represent in honor of Employee Appreciation Day. We had you'll see some of the photographs. We've had a great week. The directors have hosted a series of events, one event per day, starting on Monday with a cookie break. We had a coffee bus on Tuesday. We had a pop party yesterday. This afternoon, we have a leap day party. And then on Friday, we have a swag handout of some commemorative items, such as a hat and blanket for employees. So it's been a really great week and fun events where employees can take a well-deserved break from their responsibilities and socialize and just spend time together. So I want to recognize all of our employees and for the job they do. It is underappreciated and unnoticed, especially when we do it well, and they deserve our full support and credit. Back to you, President Hubble.
Okay, thank you, Michael, and thank you to all of our employees for their continued dedication to the district. Without you, the district wouldn't be functioning. Okay, get this. Let's see. Okay, any appearances by the public? Any appearances by the public? I don't see any hands up or anybody saying anything, so we'll move on to the consent calendar, where we have the approval of the minutes from the 15th of February meeting, the approval of cash statement operating fund, review and approval of sanitary sewer extension plans. There's a project in Fitchburg and the reconstruction project on Exchange Street in McFarland. Authorize agreement for conveyance of sanitary sewer facilities. Approved transaction amount by Metro Grow biosolids applicator purchase. And then the review of bids and award a contract with option to renew laboratory testing services for PFAS analysis of wastewater and biosolids. Do we have any questions on any of those items before we get a motion? Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Wilson, I'll move the approval of the items on the consent calendar as presented.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Wilson. Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Bookland. I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Bookland to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? Okay, none. The motion on the consent calendar approval carries. That will take us to a study session on Badger Mill Creek Stakeholder Group. Amanda and Michael, you're going to lead this off.
Good morning, Commissioners. Amanda Wegner, Communications and Public Affairs Director for the district. Just give me a moment here to pull up a presentation for you all. Oh, that didn't work as I wanted it to. Let's try that. All right. Well, good morning, Commissioners. So I am going to kick off our study session this morning on the Badger Mill Creek Stakeholder Group, and then I will turn it over to Michael toward the end. So here we are, the very end of February, Leap Day 2024. And we
Amanda,
are about 6 months in, 6 months to
Amanda,
go with
you're
the Badger.
still in a presentation view, just so you know.
Okay. Let me stop this quick and start again.
You're all good, Amanda.
Looks good.
Okay, thank you. So we are six months in, 6 months to go with the Badger Mill Creek Stakeholder Group. And as we all know, last May, we made a commitment to our communities and especially those groups and individuals who have a deep connection to Badger Mill Creek to work through a facilitated stakeholder process and receive a recommended portfolio projects to invest that $1 million we committed to support the health and resiliency of Badger Mill Creek. And so I'm here today, here in the beginning of our study session, to provide the commission with an update on the work that the group has been doing so that it can keep that commitment and also have confidence in the really, really great work that the stakeholder group has been doing. So I'm going to just take a moment, kind of go through recap, and then turn it over to Michael. So with that, first, I want to just remind everyone of the wonderful facilitation team that we brought on to help with the stakeholder group. So we have Addison Level and Mike Rupiper. Allison is working with Mike, who is with EOR. That is who our contract is with. And Allison is an expert facilitator who actually just moved into facilitation full-time into her own business as an entrepreneur. So the two facilitators, Mike and Allison, have been doing a phenomenal job facilitating the group and really helping to build rapport. It has been really great. I am in every meeting as an observer, and it has been really wonderful to see the evolution of the group and to see them build that rapport and to reconnect the various groups with one another over the last couple months, and look forward to that continuing. Also, I want to just recap who we have in the stakeholder group. So it is, as you can see, a variety of groups. We have municipalities, towns and cities. We have nonprofits, Upper Sugar River. We've got the Friends of Badfish Creek and Trout Unlimited. The county is there, DNR is there, and we are there. So Verona, City and Town, Fitchburg, and then Madison. So it is a well-represented group and a robust group as well. In the car, I did cover off of some of the recent work that the stakeholder group has been doing, but I just want to highlight a couple of things here. A few months ago, the group began drafting a definition of what healthy and resilient means as it applies to Badger Mill Creek and what that means for the group. I want to highlight that it is a draft definition, and they will come back and look at that again as they continue with their work over the next 6 months. They also began identifying interest, desired uses, and possible projects. And on the next slide, we had a really great meeting just last week where this really all sort of came together and began to coalesce. Importantly, also generated a list of data gaps and information needs. As the group moves forward and as they've been learning, a lot of what they've been doing here in the first few months is just learning from each other, kind of about projects and things that are happening with the creek and within the watershed. And it has helped identify some additional information that might be needed to help make design projects or to help make decisions for the creek. And then also agreed on the delivery of a final report to the commission. So this will be a really wonderful deliverable to all of you that kind of, for lack of a better term, shows the work of the group, outlines the projects, and sort of how they got to that point in September when that comes, the list comes to you, the report comes to you rather, for adoption. So that'll be a really wonderful deliverable that helps just to kind of bring everything together over the last 12 months. And I just kind of preface this, but in February, or our February meeting, which was last week, again, I mentioned the group has been starting to really kind of hone in on how they want their desired uses, projects they may be interested in. So at the very end of the meeting last week, Allison led the group through an exercise where each organization was allotted 100 points, and each organization could then allot their points to different projects. And it starts and I wanted to show this because it really shows how the direction the group is moving in and how they're starting to coalesce around projects. And very importantly, I want to point out that this was a straw poll. So this isn't final vote decision guidance, but this just really helped for everyone in the stakeholder group to really see where everyone was at in terms of what they're thinking they might want to invest in terms of projects. So you'll see that a few really directly floated to the top here, and some others kind of filtered out, but it's not. Also, a very clear thing that has come up, especially from our nonprofit partners, is some of these items they're already doing. They're the boots on the grounds for things such as like invasive species removal, some education and outreach. So this kind of gives us a sense of direction. But again, importantly, this is not the final vote, and the group still has 6 months to work through. In terms of what's next, we're kind of at our halfway point. So this is the remaining schedule, and you'll see there's still lots to be done, good work to be done with the stakeholder group. Just continuing to work through getting some additional information, continuing to refine the desired use and the potential project categories. There was, as you may recall, the facilitators had pitched a community meeting. We were originally going to do 2, but the group decided they weren't ready to do one back at the end of 2023. So we're looking ahead to May or June of this year and possibly doing that conjunction with one of our nonprofit participants, Upper Sugar River. More to come on that, but certainly commissioners will be welcome and encouraged to attend that community meeting. Also felt it was important to get out and take a field trip in case for those who maybe haven't experienced the creek, and really just have the group see it together. And then as you'll see here in the final few months, really developing and refining, and putting the final touches on that portfolio of recommended projects that will come to the commission for adoption. And the date for that is the September 12th commission meeting. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael, who is going to facilitate the study session questions of the commission, though, and it's certainly if anyone has any questions about the update I provided, I am more than happy to try to answer those. And I know we at least have Allison on the call and perhaps Mike this morning if I am not able to answer that question.
Thank you, Amanda. It's been a joy seeing the evolution of this group from the first meetings to now they're working as a team and really making some great progress. I also want to recognize, besides Amanda and myself, that Marty Griffin and Kathy Lake are also attending these meetings and offering really important perspectives on behalf of the district and along the way. There are really 2 critical parts for this project to be successful. One, in order to build our relationship with our stakeholders and continue to nurture that relationship, being able to honor the process and the work of the stakeholder group is going to be really critical for the district. The second thing, of course, is that this process meets your needs as a commission, because you are responsible for authorizing the funding for this work, and it has to be used in a manner you deem as appropriate. And so my questions here for you are really starting to get at what success looks like for you, and what are the conditions that are necessary for you to say yes to the final group report, and what interests you have, what are your hopes, needs, worries, and concerns as this group formulates their final recommendations to you, things that the stakeholder group should be aware of and take into consideration in their final work. And if there's anything else you'd like the group to know, that Amanda and I can pass back on to the group. So with that, I'm going to open it up for commission comments on this, and we'll record your comments and take those back.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Anybody have any comments to lead off? Beth, go ahead.
Okay, just to get started, one thing I'd like to better understand is what the ultimate goal of the stakeholder group is. I really appreciate, Amanda, you sharing the table with the different, projects or interests of the stakeholder group. But at the end of the day, I'd really like to know what exactly is going to be the ultimate goal of the stakeholder group regarding Badger Mill Creek. And then, from that goal, then, what are the steps that we plan to take? And it could be a single goal, it could be a couple of goals, but I'd really like to understand what they come up with as a goal for Badger Mill Creek. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Bookland. And Michael, please feel free to jump in here. Their task is to deliver a portfolio of recommended projects for that $1 million to the commission. I'm not 100% clear when you say goal, like if that gets into, how they define healthy and resilient and what they see as the outcome. So a little clarity on maybe what you mean by goal would be helpful for me.
Okay, yep. So what I'm thinking of is, you just mentioned healthy and resilient. So maybe that's the goal, is to ensure that Badger Mill Creek remains healthy and resilient. But it's really, I guess we've talked a lot about it, but I guess I haven't seen it, and maybe I'm just missing something, but I haven't really seen it, articulated. So I guess that's what I'd like to see, is what is ultimately the goal of the stakeholder group. And then, from that, then it would be easier for me anyway to look at the projects that the group comes up with, and then know, whether those projects are really going to meet the goal of what we're trying to do here. Is that helpful?
That is helpful, and I think that will really suss itself out as the group refines their definition of healthy and resilient, and also through the exercises that they're doing in terms of desired uses. That all lends itself to kind of defining a goal in terms of that leads the work, that the projects that they'll pull forward. So thank you for that clarification.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Rummel.
Thank you, Chair. Most of you probably won't remember that my very first meeting with the board was last year, May 11th, at the public hearing in Fitchburg. And what struck me, and what my question is, regards the base flow augmentation. So that is the number one on the list of that you presented, Amanda, like they had the most points. And so what if the base flow augmentation doesn't meet expectations? Because part of it was like, oh, you can't take away this water, we use it for recreation, fishing, all these functions. So, I don't know what it will be after, channel clearing and all the ways we can help, make it a clear flow. But so I guess that's my basic question. What if we don't meet all the hopes and dreams for this creek?
Well,
Thanks.
this is a project or a series of projects that this group wants to pursue, and there may be varying levels of performance, but that's not going to be the district's ultimate. We're not going to be regulated in that stream anymore when we consolidate our discharges. So this is our effort to help this group pursue projects that they think will work for them, meeting that definition that they come up with for healthy and resilient.
Yeah, I don't think that really answers. I understand that we're no longer, I voted to leave them because of all the things you mentioned, but that was their top goal. So I'm just curious. Thanks.
Yeah.
I will also add, Commissioner Rummel, is that the group has identified some data gaps. So there are questions of what will work, what won't work. So there are some outstanding questions to be asked, and I think that is a fair one, and I believe it is one that was identified in the data gaps as well. So it's not that no one is thinking about that. It is definitely something that I believe that the group has kind of identified as something that needs to be looked into more. Like, what does that look like and how might it be achieved?
Okay, Commissioner Eskridge.
Great, thank you. My comments tag on nicely with Commissioner Rummel's comments, just questions about sustainability. So I'll want to understand better how these projects are going to be sustainable over time, but also how the efforts of this group will continue over time, particularly noting, as you said, Michael, that the district will not be in a position to be the regulated entity or likely the facilitator of this group ongoingly. Is there a plan? Is it appropriate to have a plan for a group like this or this group to continue? And what are the structures that are in place for that to happen? I'd be curious when we look at the projects, kind of that perspective on ongoing sustainability.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. I wanted to say a couple things. First of all, when the transfer or the discharge was approved to Badger Mill Creek, there are two main reasons why that was accomplished. One was for the augmentation of stream flow, which we've had a lot of talk about. And Amanda, could you go back to that slide where you had your straw poll? And the second reason was there was a concern over interbasin of transfer of water at the time. And so if you can bring that slide up. But what I wanted you can't get it up?
Yeah, I apologize. My computer is being fussy today.
Yeah. I think when you take a look at what they had, the top few projects, the base flow augmentation, groundwater recharge, watershed management plan, and wetland restoration all probably work well to what those were our interests. Now, given saying that, we do know that from staff presentations that the stream flow augmentation is no longer as critical today, or at least when they did their study a couple of years ago, so as it was back when we went into the discharge to Badger Mill Creek. So I think we have to bear that in mind too, that one of the reasons we did this is because the data has changed based on other things that are happening within the watershed, such as groundwater recharge now being required for many of the development projects and things like that. But I think those really should be two of our particularly the stream flow was the district interest to begin with, and I think that's continues to be the district interest. And at least if you take a look at the straw poll, realizing that it could change, those projects that float to the top for our $1 million contribution work well to affect our interests. And of course, groundwater recharge, of course, depends where it's done, within what basin and what watershed that it's done, and to help that stream. So that's kind of my 2 cents worth, that the projects that are selected should choose well to meet the district's basic interests that it had. Sarah?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Your comments actually struck something else for me, so appreciate you letting me chime back in. Since we don't see a project on, ongoing data gathering, evaluation, my 2 cents to the group is, if that's something that's needed and that's something that's wanted, I mean, that was basically a contribution that MMSD made through the process of making our original decision, was some data gathering. We did a lot of, we invested resources in that. If that's a desired resource ongoingly, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing one of the projects be using some of the funds to do a check, right? Or health assessment, whatever you'd call it, the science, look at the science of how it's doing at some periodicity moving forward. So just chiming into, if that is something that's desired, that is a contribution that funds could pay for.
And Commissioner Eskridge, I will just add that has been a discussion point among the group of possibly using some of that funding to do just that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Ezra?
Thanks, Tom. I'm going to chime in with a thought, trying to answer Michael's questions about sort of interests, from the commission's standpoint. I think my viewpoint on this is maybe a lot more process oriented than substance oriented, but that's sort of the point. I think we have a unique opportunity here where we can actually empower this group to make the final decision that we're going to approve, because we trust that they made it the right way through a process that we trust in. And that we're going to do less evaluating whether we're okay with the substance of it, and more just trusting that was a really solid process, that we empowered these partners who know their watershed as well as anybody, probably better than any of us do, and it's rare that you get that opportunity to do that kind of empowerment end of the spectrum sort of engagement with stakeholders in an instance like this. But I think we have the opportunity here, and it's really kind of neat to be able to do just that. So in my mind, I like the look. I know this substance well. This is my area, right? So I do have I'm lucky to be able to evaluate this through sort of professional eyes. Everything looks great, but I'm actually less concerned about the specifics of the substance of what they come up with, because I'm going to trust that this process is really going to deliver a good outcome that we can sign off on in the end, without a lot of micromanaging it or delving into the details and nitpicking it, if that's not too strong a word. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Ezra. Anyone else have any comments? Greg or Tom or Ken, anybody?
No, it's Wilson. I'm all good. I trust the people that are involved here, and they'll do a great job of leading the group to answers that'll be good for us to accept and move forward with, and also come up with some kind of way to measure if these projects are working. So all seems good to me.
Okay, Tom, thank you. And anyone else? Seeing none? Okay, Mike. Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry, this is Greg. I
Go
just
ahead,
want to
Greg.
say I'm good. I've been going to these meetings, serving on this committee, and it's been interesting and useful. I don't have anything substantive to add, but I think the group will come up with some projects that will be that will be good for the creek, and I think it will meet Ezra's concern of process. Allison has been doing a really good job. Well, Mike as well, leading us through this. So,
Okay, thank you, Greg. Michael and Amanda, do you think you have everything you need from the commission at this point?
I
Yes,
do.
and I just.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Amanda.
I said, yes, this has been very helpful, and I appreciate the comments on process. I know, I will just say that has been a concern of the stakeholder group. And the facilitators have been, worked really hard to ensure that we have a good process. And I also apologize to Commissioner Freeze for not pointing out that he is on the stakeholder group as the delegate for City of Madison. So thank you, Commissioner Freeze, for adding your thoughts too.
Okay. So in terms of the, you showed the timeline for this process, the decision in September. So when do you think that we go back to CARPC and the DNR? Is that following that, or is that a parallel process?
Yeah, that's a completely separate process from this, but we're pursuing that with CARPC and the DNR on a separate timeline.
Do you have an idea of when that decision will be coming? Is it?
I don't have that for you, but I can follow up at a future CED update.
Okay.
When I have a little bit more information on when that will occur.
Yep. Okay. Okay, well, thank you. I think that then concludes our discussion, unless anybody else has something they wish to add. Okay, seeing none, we'll conclude our discussion on the study session and move to the approval of policy, governance, process, and proposal. And Beth and Greg Freeze are going to lead this off, I think, according to the agenda.
Thank you. And maybe I'll just give a brief intro before I turn it over to Commissioner Freeze and Bookland. They've been really helpful in helping get to where we are today. And way back in December, we had the commission had a study session to look at what are some of the ways that we can look at our own kind of governance effectiveness and performance. And the commission decided it was how they wanted to do that, how you wanted to do that was to have training and development during your commission meetings and bring an outside person to help guide you through that. With that direction, I put out a request for proposal. We received 2 proposals, and Commissioner Freeze and Bookland helped evaluate those proposals and are making a recommendation to you for your support on the process that's been laid out by the selected consultant. So I'll turn it over to Commissioner Freeze and Bookland to take it from there.
Beth, do you want to start? And I'm offering that because where we ended up was your good idea. I just agreed with it.
Oh, okay, I can I can take a stab at it, and Greg, just chime in if I get off track or whatever. But yeah, we had looked at both proposals, and we ended up going at the end of the day with the proposal from the group that actually the lower cost proposal, and from the governance group, not because it was just lower cost, which was attractive to us, but the fact that they have worked over the last 30 years with hundreds of boards to help those boards deliver better on their performance. And they've used a model called the Carver model. This is a well-known model that's used widely by boards across the country and probably across the world. But and they have been trained directly by Jim Carver and that group. So they have already the training materials and the models set up and everything. So we thought that that would be a good place to start with this. And so we would get the overview from them. And then depending on what the next steps are, we could then go ahead with BJ and his group to then go ahead and follow up on the next steps, because of the strength that BJ brings is that he is the expert on the district, and he knows the district quite well. So we thought if we kind of meld both of those together, start out with a broad overview and training by this group who are experts in the training of boards and commissions, and then do follow up with BJ as needed, as we identify. We thought that would be a good hybrid. So Greg, if you want to take it from here.
Sure, I think I'll just add, so anybody who is who has worked with me knows that I would normally go for the low cost. If it was a competent proposal, that would be my default position. In this case, I had actually initially leaned the other way, but when Beth and I talked, and Michael talked, the idea of using a somewhat more structured approach, and the which also was the lower bid, and then bringing in BJ as needed for what I'll call specialty work, right? Given his history with the district and the commission, seemed like really a great way to go, right? It's somewhat structured. This is not a strength of mine, which is one of the reasons I'm interested in this topic. And going through I don't want to call it rigid, but let's say a detailed and structured approach, and then fleshing out if we need to do something special seemed like a really good idea. So that's why we went that way. And again, I giving credit here to Beth for that really good idea. So thank you.
Ezra,
Hey,
I see
Ezra,
your.
are you guys done with your presentation?
Yep, I am.
Okay, Greg and Beth, Ezra, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry my camera's on the fritz, so I've lost video, but I have to admit that I was confused looking at the numbers, the dollars, and as you guys referenced, lowest cost bid. I wasn't sure whether to interpret the governance coach proposal to say that it would be $2,880 per meeting, which would mean $2,880 times 4, or for a total, or $2,880 for a total cost for 4 meetings. It's sort of, I interpreted it the way that would be $2,880 times 4. So much closer in cost to the other one. It's but I honestly sat there going, I don't know if I'm interpreting it the right way or if it's the other way, which seemed to be the way you guys interpreted it.
Yeah, Ezra, it's my understanding it's the total cost. And the reason it's so low is because they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They've done this for many other boards, and she would just be using material that they already have and an approach they already have. So her time wouldn't be in for preparing the material to present. It would just be her time to present the material. And that was the big difference between BJ and her. BJ would have to pull that, put effort and time into putting together a training session, whereas they would already have that ready to go.
Okay, that helps. Thank you. I appreciate the clarity there.
That is worth reconfirming after we award this contract with them on those costs, and if there's any other costs that we need to be aware of.
Okay, Commissioner Eskridge, Sarah?
Thanks. One question, and both to you, Greg and Beth, thanks for doing the work with Michael to review these and bring them forward for us. Really appreciate that work. Wondering, we did some training with the governance coach a couple years ago virtually, and I know we've had some shift in commission members since then. Is it possible that we still have access to those trainings for anyone who wants to rewatch them or anyone who hasn't watched them to do that in advance? Because my only add was that if we're going to get something out of the governance coach materials, I think it would be helpful for everybody to have that shared background first. And then I think we'd get a lot more out of Rose's time with us. And I know that might have been before both Beth and Greg were on the commission. So that's worth looking back at in my mind so that we take advantage of all that work that many of us did previously.
That's a very good suggestion. I know the training materials had a sunset date, but that doesn't mean to say I can get that material again for use. One of the other things that's built into the proposal is, and this is something that Commissioner Rummel has reinforced, is, what is this governance that we're using, and what the governance coach is going to help the commission do is level set all of us on what your policies are and how they work together as a starting point of understanding your governance through the policy book. And that those training materials could be very helpful because as we get to this next item on the agenda regarding the executive director's performance, that training was about monitoring performance. And there may be some opportunities in some of that material as we look forward on monitoring of the executive director, ways to handle that, and the entire commission would benefit from that material. So I'll pursue that with Rose, the consultant.
That would be great, because I'm virtually looking at my seatmate Tom and smiling and saying, I think there were some parts of that really resonated with us and others that did not. So it would be helpful to refresh that conversation, at least for me, because exactly to your point, Michael, I think there are parts that we'd want to lean further into and those that we really need to come up with our own perspective and process on. And the chief engineer or the executive director performance is a great example of ways in which we both used the tools and decided that the tools haven't fit for us. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else? I don't see anybody. So I just, Ezra, I kind of had the opposite interpretation of you. I interpreted more like Beth and Greg must have, that total was for all sessions, but I think that is a good way to check if you're getting two different readings from different people. That's a good thing to check on, which they'll do. So we have a resolution that would adopt this approval of policy governance process and proposal. Do we have a motion to approve the, first of all, is there any more comments or discussion?
I would make that motion, Tom. Commissioner Clark.
Motion by Commissioner Clark to approve the resolution. Do we have a second?
This is Eskridge. I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Eskridge. Okay, any further discussion on this item?
Thanks, Beth and Greg.
Okay.
Yes.
Seeing none or hearing none, all those in favor of approving the resolution say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? None, motion carries. Okay, good, thank you. I'm gonna get out of that.
I want to thank Commissioner Freeze and Commissioner Bookman. They were very helpful in this process. So,
Yep, thank you both for serving on that kind of subgroup. Okay, that will take us, excuse me, to the 2023 performance evaluation process of the executive director, which is actually titled in 2023 the chief engineer and director. So I think I'll lead this off. Last week, Friday, BJ contacted Michael and I, and as he was getting into the process, he had some concerns over the process for the evaluation of Michael. Two things mainly, excuse me, were that the structural changes that have been accomplished at the district in going to only 2 reports, when in fact he had more reports for 2023, and kind of that forced modification to a process that had been thoughtfully designed. But if you saw in the packet, he then over the weekend gave some more thought to this and laid out some good reasoning and came up with two options. And I don't know, BJ, if you have anything to say to that. I don't want to have to read everything that you already wrote, but he came up with two options. One was going with kind of the focus item performance review, where we review how the established priorities, how they were accomplished. And then the second was going back to a review process for 2023 of all of his direct reports, not doing the ELC and the outside, but just going back instead of the two, going back to, I think it was the 7 direct reports that he had in 2023. So BJ, if you have anything to add.
I don't think I have anything to add to the information that's in the car. The only, I will take this momentary opportunity to editorialize a little bit on the ways in which this sort of highlights the limitations of annual reviews and their, largely historical nature. And I think the one thing that might be missing from the car is just in terms of clarity is that regardless of the path that the commission chooses, the process needs an evaluation itself because of the structural changes. So either way, however this year's process resolves, Michael and I have already begun the conversation about what it would look like to, in terms of timing, to evaluate the process as it stands under the new structure and come back to the commission with some proposed changes. Which I think is both appropriate and necessary. So I don't know that that is entirely clear that that is a component of either option, regardless of the direction. That is work that needs attention given the leadership structure changes. So that's all I think I'd add.
Okay, and thank you for joining us, BJ. So I guess I think it's known that given the structural change in the makeup of the organization, that organizational change, that we'll have to probably rethink the process this year for this 2024 evaluation. Okay, anybody have any comments as what their preference is? There is also a third option, is to continue with the current process that was decided by the commission back in January. Commissioner Estrich and Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you. I prompted Michael and BJ in advance with my question, which was just to fill in, and I apologize, I missed the meeting where this discussion happened at the end of January. So actually it was quite helpful to read your recap, BJ, of you're watching it. I just had read the agenda, the notes. So anyway, I'll say I would love it if you could say more about how you would propose this evaluation of the focus items would happen. Would it be a self-evaluation for 2023? Just say more about how that process would look and kind of what, excuse me, what resources you'd need from the commission, from BJ to facilitate that.
I'll take a first shot at this. I have my self-evaluation completed, and one of the things that was really clear is when the commission established new reporting requirements, I've been reporting my performance to you every quarter through the performance updates, etc. But what I'm going to be giving you is an end of the year report on the performance areas. And you approved a monitoring schedule last year on the types of things you wanted me to report to you on. And while it wasn't complete and perfect, as the commission indicated, there were things I should start reporting. So my self-assessment is going to report to you our progress on performance indicators, and some of those are on infrastructure reliability, workforce development, owner communities, public trust. I also will be doing an overview of the 2023 focus items. Well, actually, I already did through an end of year update on how we did on those focus item priorities. And I'll be reporting to you on district governance and some of the governance improvements we've made through the year. And finally, I had my professional development action plan that I presented to you last spring. And I had 3 items on there that I was going to perform on, and I'll be reporting to you on those. So it's all coming together into about a 3.5-page document, all of that information. And there's still more work to do for this year, but we've come a long way in a year. So that's the performance information you will receive from me. I might even get that out this week.
Okay, and then is the thought that we would review that, have a conversation with you, both in probably open and closed session about that feedback, Michael, and then come up with any particularly personal development goals and plans for 2024? Is that generally?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks. That's helpful.
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
Let's
Ezra?
maybe do, that was helpful. Let's do clarity on what specifically the option 2 process might look like. I think what I'm interpreting is it would be very much like what BJ has done in the past. And all of Michael's 2023 direct reports would be interviewed confidentially, and then BJ would sum up, roll up those results and share those both with Michael and with us, and discussion in closed session, et cetera, et cetera. Is that about right?
Yeah, I think that's the gist of what's on the table. It does represent a change from last year's process in that the recommendation that I'm making, if the commission went that direction, would be simply that they are one-on-one conversations with direct reports. Last year, there was a pre-conversation online questionnaire for those folks. I'm not recommending doing that again. And there were the other components of a questionnaire to the commission and a questionnaire to owner communities. And right, there are all of those pieces that I'm not recommending. I'm simply recommending a process that is, or suggesting a process. I wouldn't say I'm recommending it. That is just one-on-one conversations, as you put it, Commissioner Meyer, with the direct reports in 2023, and a roll-up of kind of those findings for Michael and the commission to consider.
Thanks, BJ. That helps. I mean, that's, so maybe there's an information level set on like what our 2 options are that we're considering. I'll jump in with sort of where I'm landing on this, or at least where I'm thinking I'm landing on it preliminarily. So I reading back through BJ's, summary of the meeting, I see where we kind of got into a really muddled mix hybrid of sort of the old and the new that didn't make a lot of sense. Only with 2020 hindsight, of course, did that come as clear as it is now. But as I look at it now, I actually lean towards option 2. I think we have goals we created over a year ago. We had a structure that worked right through the end of last year, and a group of folks who were Michael's direct reports. And to do that process and check in with those folks has a lot of value, as it always has. And so I'm back to thinking that that's the right way to close out sort of the old way. I'll throw out a complete agreement with I think BJ's and Michael's point in the car and in BJ's materials that we need to revisit what the process looks like going forward under the new structure where Michael has 2 direct reports, and just completely sort of revisit what the right answer is there, because where we ended up last time wasn't going to work for the new structure, wouldn't work going forward for the new structure. When you only have 2 folks, you just can't be confidential anymore. So we'll need to think kind of whole cloth maybe about what that's going to look like. But anyway, I think right now we're doing a one-time as at this point of transition between the old structure and new. And so I lean towards option 2.
Okay, thank you, Ezra. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Oh, did I just freeze up my screen? Shoot.
This is Commissioner Bookland. If I could just jump in here for a moment and say, I agree with you, Ezra, completely. I think we're in a transition period. And I think going with the second option makes a lot of sense. And I'd like to just see how that goes this year, and then revisit and decide, what going forward, what the commission would like to do. Because I agree, getting the input from the 2 direct reports, there's no anonymity to it. So, you know, we need to really think about, you know, what we're going to do. And I think there's value in doing a larger review on a periodic basis. And we had talked about this as a commission before. So, you know, what that period would it be every other year, every 3 years, 5 years, whatever? But, you know, but for, at least for now, I think I really would like to just go with the second option. So thanks.
Okay, Sarah, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, thank you. I came in with a pretty strong preference for option one, actually, to say we've been in a transition around this chief engineer and director, executive director evaluation process, frankly, for the past few years. And it's been both a challenge and I think starting to gel in the ways that we're identifying what isn't working well and what is maybe what needs to work better, and especially in terms of more periodic reporting. BJ, you kind of alluded to that rather than these retrospectives. And Michael alluded to the fact that these quarterly check-ins, I would agree, have been working quite well. I would love to see us formalize the new process much more concretely. So actually in the process of this conversation, I'm wavering much more in my strong recommendation of option one, because I do think I'm hearing Ezra and Beth say there's a reason to pulse check, particularly in what the old kind of organizational structure looked like throughout this transition, even if it's just a baseline prior, to give us kind of a baseline prior to new organizational structure and new performance review process. That might actually be helpful information, but I would ask that we not delay putting conversation about the new process on our agenda. We need to, in my opinion, do that sooner rather than later. And I would also support putting resource into that reevaluation process. I think BJ could provide us with a lot of support and assistance in reimagining the process. And I, for one, think we should use his expertise or someone's expertise in that process design so that we don't find ourselves in this constant period of transition without any outcome in terms of a new process. My 2 cents for today, which is changing based on a conversation. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, Tom?
Well, Sarah called me her seatmate, I think, before. And I tend to agree with everything she just said. I got to tell you, I'm fine with any of these three options. I'm fine with what we chose before, even though some of you may see issues with it. I'm fine with that. And frankly, I'm fine with what Beth and Ezra suggested as well. I'm still leaning like Sarah, so we do sound alike sometimes, towards number one and the options that she talked about with having some help in setting up since we're in the middle of a transition here from what we've done in the past to what we're going to do. Maybe we just deal with option one right now and move on from that. It seems simpler, it seems direct, and then we can work on a process that we feel does best with BJ's help, frankly. So that's where I'd be leaning. I don't think we could go wrong with any of these choices, frankly. So those are my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Okay, Ken and then Marcia.
Yeah, Michael, the quarterly feedback that you provided to the commission, I think, has been very helpful. It helps me as a commissioner. I'm kind of back and forth on one or two. I would probably lean towards two just because we'd get a little bit more feedback. But at the same time, BJ, if you can identify areas to streamline this process as a commissioner, I would appreciate that. The evaluation process is very lengthy. I'll just put it that way. And I'm still not understanding why it has to take so long, but that's my 2 cents there.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree, Commissioner Clark. It's a cumbersome process, particularly as an annual process, which is why I think the commission had some discussion about an alternating cycle for this sort of full 360. And I would say, I mean, I think an annual 360 is borders on the inhumane for everybody involved. And you know, an annual process is very susceptible to the human limitations of, you know, things like recency bias, right? Everything that is most recent is most carries the greatest weight, even if that content is not within the review period. So it's again, this was my little editorializing that Sarah picked up on in terms of continuous monitoring versus annual evaluation, and trying to at least chart maybe a middle course on those. I think that's very doable. And I do think the process can and should be streamlined, particularly in light of the structural changes. So yeah, heard.
And my support for option 2 is kind of contradictory to streamlining this process, but I'm on the fence at best.
Okay, Marcia?
Thanks, Chair. I'm not sure I've been involved long enough to have a sense of how this is burdensome. I think I missed an early session and then I went to one. So when I read the notes, option 2 seemed clearly more equitable because it captures most of 2023, where there were 7 reports. So I not just lean, I support option 2. And then secondarily, the larger question for me is, now that there's only 2 reports, how do we create a process so that you know, these 2 people aren't feeling that they can't speak freely and or are in jeopardy? I mean, there's sort of power dynamics at work that we want to respect people's, you know, good judgment, but also, you know, they don't necessarily want to say everything out loud that they think that might be helpful. So I don't know how to balance that going forward. It seems like there might be answers that I just don't really know that maybe BJ helps us see. You know, it seems to me at some point having more randomized maybe inputs that we could set up might be helpful, but I don't really know what that looks like because I'm just sort of a novice at this. Pass.
Okay, thank you, Marcia. Greg?
Yeah, so I will say 2 things. I first of all, I agree with BJ. I really like your statement that a 360 review annually is I think you used the word inhumane. I do agree with that. I think that is such an in-depth. I've only been through a couple of these now on the commission, but I watched all of this, right, and all the closed sessions, and more importantly, all the work that Ezra and Sarah did behind the scenes when this was going on, right? And so that's personally, I think I question the value of it because it takes so long to do, right? By the time you do that, you're almost ready to start it over again. It almost feels like the budget process, you know, where, you know, I get this and I get about 3 months off and I'm like, wow, it's time to start this again. And so I do agree with that. For this particular issue, I am kind of I was really on the fence, quite honestly, when I came in here. But I kind of lean with what Commissioner Rommel just said, in that option 2 represents mostly what occurred actually in 2023, and we got to figure out what we're going to do because it is not going to work for 2024 going forward. I don't know what will work with only 2 direct reports to Michael now. I have no idea. Again, this is not a great strength area for me. I assume it is for BJ, and he will have some suggestions. But I guess for now, I would be leaning towards number 2, just to end this and start a clean break with something new for next year. And if that means also not a big in-depth every year, I would support that, as I said. So.
Okay, thank you, Greg. So what I'm reading is there's oh, Beth, go ahead.
Thank you. If I could just chime in one more minute briefly. One of the roles of the commission, I've been reading a little bit about this Carver model for governance and trying to decide, what my role is on the commission. And one of the three roles for a commission is organizational performance. And I think, BJ, it would be really helpful if you could help us come up with a streamlined approach so that as a commissioner, I can look at the overall organizational performance and say, in a pretty succinct manner, oh gosh, it's working, things are looking good, or these are areas that need improvement. I think I do agree with everybody. It's been a really cumbersome process, and if we could streamline it and yet get the information that we need out of it as commissioners, so we're convinced that the organization is operating at the level that we feel is the right level, then I think, that's what I'd like to do. And it might be every so many years we do a really in-depth look, but the other years we do a streamlined look. So that's just my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Beth. So what I was going to say is that it seems that we have more commissioners that desire to go ahead with the second option, which is where BJ would interview all of the direct reports from 2023. And then at the same time, we'll have to reconsider the whole, BJ will work with you on this, work with the commission on this, is to rethink the process, what would be best with the new organizational structure of only 2 direct reports. There's one reason I like, or a couple reasons I like number 2 better. First of all, one of the main duties of the chief engineer director, executive director, is he's a manager and he manages people. And the only way to best know how he is managing and effectively managing is not necessarily the end result, it's the means to get to the end result. And so that's kind of the second option. My second point is that we ought to also know the means. You can get to an end result that you find is acceptable, but were the means to get there always acceptable? And was the management of the individual that he needs to manage, that person needs to manage, appropriate and effective? So that's what you get through. And I think that's one of the failures of the kind of the policy governance process, and I'm not nearly an expert in it as many of you are, but we have to look at that human aspect in the manager. So I think, BJ, what I'm hearing from the commission is right now the majority want to go with option 2, where you would then review those others, and then if you could be in contact with me as to what you think are appropriate steps for a revised process, given the new organizational structure, and how we can best do that. And then we can discuss too, we talked about last January having the 360 review every second year, but maybe that's not even, I think I had brought up every 3 years or something like that, but I think we can discuss that more too. And I do agree with somebody like Ken and Greg that the process has always seemed overly cumbersome and more involved than it really needs to be. So maybe we'll be able to get some thoughts from you, BJ, as to how to handle that. Okay, does that make sense, everybody? Okay, so I think my screen here went. We'll move on then to, I'm gonna get back to the agenda. So Michael and BJ, you're okay with that?
Yes.
I think you said, BJ, you understand?
I do. Yep. I think I've got the charge.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the executive director's report. Michael?
Well, thank you. I have 3 things to report to you today, and I'm going to start out with an emergency project, and the district's principal engineer, Eric Dundee, will brief you on a situation we're dealing with. Eric?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. And I hope this is not the normal. I will say that as a principal engineer. Need to report that last Monday, we had to declare an emergency for part of our critical infrastructure, which is our hot water loop at the district. So we use our hot water loop at the district to pass heat from and to areas of the plant. And we've been dealing with this issue with hot water loop outside our operations building for well over 6 months here. And officially last week, we attempted to fix the 4th spot in the pipe, which was it's a fiberglass reinforced pipe, and we were unable to fix it. And in this case, if those who are municipal based think about your water main and a piece of old water main breaks, you fix one piece and it breaks 10 feet away. That was the situation we had. And unfortunately, in this situation, it's fiberglass pipe. So the contractors and materials are not as readily available. So quick background on what the hot water loop does for the district. If those who can think about their radiator for their car. So we put antifreeze or water in and it runs through the radiator to cool the radiator down. We actually do both here. We have processes where the water runs past equipment, like our engine blowers, and pulls heat away. And then that heat goes and heats up different things like our sludge process or our buildings. So just to get into what this hot water loop does and why this is an emergency is because it actually serves a portion of our operations building, both for heating and cooling. It serves our sludge heating process for our Class A cake that we do. And then also all of our West plant process buildings, heating and cooling. Why this is an emergency is ultimately because without the ability to heat or cool our operations building, our lab cannot effectively do their work. It is one thing to be in an area of cold weather where we can put space heaters into a room to temperature control a room. It's completely another if it gets warm, ta-da, and we cannot control the temperature and keep it low enough. So had to deem this an emergency because of the fluctuations in the lab and unfortunately the risk it causes with chemicals and reagents in instrumentation performance. Without a proper QA/QC process, our lab and all the work we do to monitor the plant would be in significant danger there. The other part is we've been working with the contractor and we cannot get fiberglass pipe fast enough in a contractor. So we have actually changed our approach to go to a carbon steel welded pipe. And even that with supply and demand is 7 weeks out. So for those quickly doing your math, we're already hopefully getting our pipe in mid-April. And we have no idea what the temperature is going to be like. So we're moving fast. We're trying to do the best we can and get that going. One of the other reasons this is an emergency for the district is we all know we spend a lot of time trying to reduce our costs with energy. This pipe here helps us use our engine blower to save the district anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a day on energy costs. And now with this pipe broken, we are now incurring those costs every day until we get it fixed. So with that, this is just an introductory topic to let you know about the emergency. We will be back at the next meeting in March to do a full report, give you some cost estimates. I can go out on a limb and tell you, we're at least in the hundreds of thousands range. If you're going to make me put a number on it, I would be in the $200,000 to maybe $500,000 range this is. So that's my report. understanding this is just that. Commissioner Hovell, I'll let you to decide how much discussion to have.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I just had one question. How much pipe are you replacing?
It's still being decided with the contractor, but it's 200 to 300 feet.
Okay, so that's the reason for the big, your 200 to 500. Got it.
Yes, yeah, the breaks have been, you know, about 100 feet apart and then in between all of those breaks. So we have to just replace that whole section.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Eric? I don't want to get into a discussion because that's obviously, but if I think the questions are appropriate because we've had questions on other things. Greg?
Yeah, Eric, I just have one question. So I have actually a lot of questions, but I'll limit it to one for the purposes of this. So how does this fiberglass reinforced pipe, do you have this throughout the plant? And then are you after we deal with the emergency, right? Is the next step to think about how we prevent this from becoming an emergency throughout the rest of the plant? Is lining a possibility for the remainder of the plant that isn't suffering these kind of, you know, breaks right now?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Greg. Thank you for that. Let's answer that with where we're going to replace the section that is in question right now. So not to get into too many specifics, but from our sludge control building to our west process and our operations building, we're planning to replace all of that at this point. That's part of our 6th and 7th edition piping and loops. To your second part of the question about the future, our heat and power project that we've got the RFP out for right now, this is going to be reviewed, the whole heating and thermal system for the district. So it's been on our radar and it will continue to be on our radar. So
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Michael, you can move on.
Okay, I have two more things. I have retained Andrew Hansen from the law firm of Perkins Coie to assist the district in the development of an agreement with Madison Gas and Electric for backup power generation at the treatment plant. Since Stafford Rosenbaum represents MG&E as well as us, there is that conflict of interest that needs to be resolved. The legal costs are special legal services, not part of our legal retainer with Stafford. And I have budgeted reserve funds for that, for special services as part of the budget. We need about 5 megawatts of standby power generation in cases of emergency when we lose grid power. And MG&E wants to site and build a large 36 megawatt facility on plant grounds. So there are a lot of complexities with that type of an agreement in terms of service expectations, cost sharing, risk sharing, and then real estate matters, as this facility will be on district property. So Andrew will be helping us navigate those complexities from a legal standpoint, and we'll be developing some form of an agreement or agreements with MG&E in the foreseeable future. The next one is on recognition, and the district recently received 3 awards for the Flushables animations campaign we did last year. First, we previously shared the video and that we won an award with the National Association of Clean Water Agencies awards program. And Amanda and I, and Marty, we accepted the award at the ceremony at the winter conference in Austin earlier this month. We also submitted the campaign to the American Advertising Federation Madison Chapter, their annual awards competition, and we're nicely surprised to learn we won not 1, but 2 awards. We received the silver in the public service announcement category and also received a special judge's choice award. So special thanks go to Amy Steger, the district's communications and marketing specialist, who did the lion's share of the work on the campaign internally, and to our creative partner, Fatbird Creative. We're delighted this campaign has been recognized for its impact outside the organization. So Commissioner Hovell, that's my report, unless there are questions.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Anybody have any questions? So Michael, I had one. So the MG&E is talking about is it a peak generating capacity plant? Like combustion turbines, or what is it?
Boy, they're called RICE units, and Eric would know more of the details. I haven't reviewed the specifics, but they're special units they use. They're fueled by natural gas, and there's a series of them, 2 or 3 that will be used in this particular case.
Okay, it sounds like what they used, basically large generators that they put in. So they had that in Fitchburg, or have that in Fitchburg. Okay. Okay, let's see. We'll move on to operations report. Alan?
Good morning, Commissioners. Alan Grooms, Operations Manager for the district. I'll be presenting the January operations report. Assuming, actually, I don't assume that now. I think you can see my screen.
You can, Alan.
All right. And now I gotta get the slide to advance. Okay. For January operations, our treatment metrics, pretty good numbers all across the board, kind of, as you can see, kind of where they fall within the historical portion, all kind of right in pretty normal ranges for all our parameters. CBOD 5, 3.8, very good, particularly for this time of year. Suspended solids, pretty low in comparison to our limit of 16. So we got 5.1 on that. So pretty good performance there. Ammonia, a touch elevated, 0.29. We did have some, oftentimes that does a little more elevated in the wintertime, with a little bit more slower reactions from our bugs doing the work, so they don't work quite as effectively. It's part of the reason we get the more relaxed limit in the winter. There's also the aspect that ammonia has less toxicity in the aquatic environment in the wintertime. So there's a variety of factors there, but one of them is, I think, recognition that it's a little harder to biologically treat the ammonia in the wintertime, just due to just cold temperatures. We don't work as fast in the cold temperatures, neither do the bugs. And we did see a little bit of that persist into February, just to kind of give you a tip my hand a little bit for what's coming up next month. Phosphorus numbers, 0.25, very good. And chloride, again, that's there's a combination of dilution, how much snow melt and things like that we see. Typically this time of year, we do see that tend to come up a little bit, because we often don't have higher flows. But as we see some of the road salts and stuff melt off. Fortunately, maybe for, I think there's been mixed feelings with the winter time that we've gotten, lack of snowfall overall. Probably one of the upsides when we look back at this is going to be that overall we're going to see a little bit better chloride numbers than we might typically at this time of the year. So, but no promises there. We really can't control that, but that's what we have on that. Really nothing. These kind of reports, I guess they're good if they're boring. So I don't really have anything exciting to report on this. I will say our 2024 disinfection season starts midnight tonight. We'll probably be firing those units up this afternoon, probably by midday, just to make sure that verify everything's working fine, so we aren't calling people out at midnight to say we got a problem. So, but I expect they'll work fine. With that, that's all I have. I don't know if anyone has any questions for me.
Okay, anyone have questions for Alan? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, Alan. Vanessa, regulatory and legal.
Good morning, Commissioners. As far as the legal services update goes, we've continued to provide a number of contract services for the district, including real estate and easement work, as well as some intergovernmental agreement work. We're also continuing to provide a fair amount of our services on the regulatory side. of things. And to that end, I do want to give a little bit of an update from the regulatory perspective, or legislative perspective, I guess, because the Assembly had the last week of its session last week, and we saw the de-icer certification bill pass through the Assembly, as well as the bill providing for use of Clean Water Fund money for to address inflow and infiltration projects. That also passed through the Assembly. So both of those bills move on to the governor's desk for signature, and we're anticipating that they'll both get signed and get passed into law. The other bill that advanced through the Assembly was the PFAS municipal grant, or the bill that does a number of addresses a number of PFAS items, including establishing a municipal grant program. That also passed the Assembly. But we are anticipating that the governor is going to veto that bill. He said he would veto it because of some of the limitations that it imposes on the Department of Natural Resources authority to require remediation of properties contaminated with PFAS compounds. The governor has called on the Joint Finance Committee to release the $125 million in PFAS funds that were allocated in the state budget to a municipal grant program, even absent passage of that legislation. They've not indicated that they'll do that, so that 125 million still sits sort of in limbo, assuming that the governor does decide to, or does fulfill his promise to veto that bill. So more to come very soon, I guess, on those different legislative proposals, but I just wanted to provide that update for you this morning. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Vanessa. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. Future meeting schedule, that's in the packet. So our next meeting is on the 14th of March, and a few days, but several days before that, we will have had the time change. Future agenda topics. Anybody have any future agenda topics? No, any other business?
Tom, the one future agenda topic that came up clearly was working with BJ further on the process for ED
Right.
review.
For the
forward.
next review, yeah.
Yep.
Yep, and that was part of his marching order. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Any other business? Staying on, Tom?
I move we adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by
I'll second that, Tom.
Commissioner Clark to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Have a good remainder of the week.
Thanks,
See
everyone.
y'all. Thank you.
Bye.